to see. I'm not sure. I don't know whether a candidate in any other country could get away with saying we've lost all our wars for 2 centuries. That's why we simply don't have the gumption to pull a Brexit. Can he get away with it in France?
Well, to some extent, he can get away with it because on the specific issue of Brexit, what the French don't like about Brexit for themselves, about Frexit, if you will, is that France has done quite well from the EU as opposed to Britain. France is one of the founding members. It got the farmers protected for years, decades, through perfectly well sort of voted laws in Brussels. And there's a feeling that we can make that work for us. And if we don't make that work for us, we do not respect our commitments. And some other French politicians have said that clearly. They said, if there's a law or a treaty that we don't like, it takes forever to apply it, if ever. And once Britain signed up to laws, then to European regulations, they applied them to the letter because that's the way the British are. So I think there's also that in the background. But it's also worth reminding people that Éric Zemmour is a man who has been denouncing the pessimism of the French, and what he calls the French suicide is the name of one of his books, and where he says that France is going to the wall essentially because she doesn't have the courage of her own convictions, and she is not defending her civilization and many other things. So it goes with what he says, and it only works on his supporters, but he's got lots of supporters. His campaign and his polling has flagged a bit recently, but by and large, he is the newest and most sort of interesting thing to come out of what was supposed to be a very boring race and is becoming interesting largely because of him.
Well, when you say it was going to be a very boring race, that's because it would have been Monsieur Macron up against the house-trained centre-right candidate. And instead, he thinks that I'm just putting it that way because that's what it is. She hasn't got quite enough red meat for a lot of people on that side of the aisle. His first job was to take out Marine Le Pen. And then his second role is to take out the mushy right candidate. Do you think he's got a real shot at winding up in the runoff?
I think even though his numbers flagged, at one stage he was number 2. You know how this goes in France. What you call the French way of doing primaries. You have the first round, and in the first round, everybody who's got 500 elected officials throughout the country to support them can run, and people get to choose. And the second round, the runoff, 2 weeks later, is where you've got number 1 and number 2, and they slug it out, and then we vote for one of them. And the Republican Party took some time, the centre-right party of de Gaulle and Sarkozy, although de Gaulle probably would not recognize it today. They voted for Valérie Pécresse, who is a respectable woman. She was Minister of Universities until Sarkozy, and then she was Secretary for the Budget. But until the day before yesterday, I would say that, quite right, not much red meat about her. She just took on, during a live broadcast, an interview of hers who's just been accused of sexual harassment. And she said, look, I asked myself whether I should come to this program, but assuming that, taking into account the fact that there's a presumption of innocence, I decided to come, but I would like to tell French women that I will stand for them. Now, it's not what she says, which is important here. What's interesting here is that essentially she took on a mainstream star journalist and she read him the Riot Act. And that was much more interesting than the performative feminism. It was essentially saying, yes, I have teeth. Yes, I can be tough and I can kill people. That was really interesting. Marine Le Pen and Éric Zemmour are essentially within the margin of error, and they're all polling something around 16, 17, 18%. And then you've got Emmanuel Macron, who's gone slightly down, but not much, from 25% to 24.5%. So he definitely comes first in the runoff. But who is going to run against him? Nobody knows.